The bonus wagon just keeps on a rolling. The Blue Jackets have their 6th win in a row, their 9th win in their last 10 games, and everything is looking real good for the Blue Jackets right now. Let's talk about last night's game on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team, and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I also want to thank you for making us the #1 sports podcast network and let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It is the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Another great Blue Jackets game. An extremely un-Blue Jackets-like game this season, if I'm being really honest. I want to talk about the win, obviously. I want to talk about the goaltending. I want to talk about that third period specifically is what I want to talk about. And if we have time, I want to talk a little about the game tomorrow, but I don't know that we'll have a chance to get into it. Welcome in, everydayers. If you're new here, hello, welcome in. Some of you know how this works by now, but when I go live, what I like to do is I'll use the first 2 segments of the show to talk about like the game and all of that stuff. And then the third segment of the show, so in about 20-ish minutes time, I'll dive into the comment section, answer any comments, questions, etc. that are in there. I'm not ignoring you, I promise. I'm just very stupid, and I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. And by that, I mean I can't pay attention to the chat and also talk about the game. So while I would love to, what'll happen is I'll talk for a bit, and then the third segment of the show, I'll jump into that comment section. So if you have anything to throw in there, throw it in there now, and I will get to it in probably like 18 minutes time. But I want to talk about this game, obviously. Huge game. The first 40 minutes were extremely forgettable. That's not the worst 40-minute performance I've seen out of the Blue Jackets this season, right? But typically, they either start well and then fade towards the end, or they just look awful throughout, right? They looked extremely sluggish in the first period. They looked better in the second period, and then they looked great in the third period, which is a genuine shock to me. They've looked better in the third period under Rick Bowness, but have still had some issues. You know, again, that St. Louis third period wasn't great. The third period against the Blackhawks the night before wasn't great either. They got to get the job done both times, but they needed to have a great third period in this game, and hey, they sure did, right? Shots on goal were 7-3 to New Jersey after the first period. They were 17-12 after the second period. And then the Blue Jackets had 13 shots in the third period, which, if I'm doing my math right, is in fact more shots than they had in the first 40 minutes combined. They held the Devils to only 7 shots. A low event hockey. Only 25 shots for the Blue Jackets, 24 for the Devils. The Blue Jackets at even strength had 48 shot attempts, and the Devils had 52. So again, pretty low event, which is not necessarily something I'm used to with the Blue Jackets. We've been seeing more low event games under Bowness than we had been under Dean Eberson, which I think is great. We've seen those shots against totals come down. We've seen the goals against totals come down. I would love to see the goals for or the shots for and the shot attempts for numbers go up a little bit. But right now it looks like, and I think this was the right move, is that Rick Bowness has focused a lot on the defensive side of the game, which was frankly where they needed the most help. So I'm really not mad that he's fixing the defense first, because I do think that was the biggest issue with the team. And we're starting to see that pay off, right? Again, we're seeing it in terms of tonight, which I thought was a very solid defensive performance. The Blue Jackets allowed 11 high danger shot attempts, and they scored that they had 8 of them. So I feel pretty good about that. And then even better about that is this is all situations. If you switch that to 5-on-5, now the Devils had, I think, 3 power plays in that game. The Blue Jackets, I think, had 2, I want to say. And there was some 4-on-4 nonsense when things got chippy at the end there. But at 5-on-5, which the Devils had 47-46 5-on-5 time in this game, only 4 high-danger shot attempts. They were averaging a high-danger shot attempt once every 10 minutes or so. More than that. But the Blue Jackets, I thought they had a really, really good defensive performance. Would I have loved to see more offense? Sure, but which sounds like a stupid thing to say in a game that you won 3-0. But I think these are the games that you love to win, right? I think Elvis was great in this game. He kept them in it. The first 2 periods, he was excellent. I thought was good in the third as well. But he kept them in it, right? I think the Devils looked like the better team for a lot of this game. Blue Jackets weathered that storm pretty well, I think. Even if they weren't creating much of their own, they also weren't giving a ton up. But I still think, again, Elvis made, I think, at least 2 excellent saves that I can remember. Did they get help from the post several times? Sure. But it's these are the fun games to win, right? You come into the third period, it's 0-0, and at the end of that, it's 3-0. I don't know what that does off the top of my head to the Blue Jackets' third period goal differential. I want to say it's at like -16 right now with those 3 goals. I might be wrong about that, but considering where it started, again, I think they continue to improve on these things, which is great, right? Again, would I have loved to see more offense? Yes, but the offense that they did get, I thought, was really what's the word I want? Opportunistic, I think is probably the best word for it. Obviously, they were unlucky to get that goal disallowed in the first period. Goal interference doesn't make any sense at the best of times, and I feel like many people were okay with that not being called a goal. I was confused by it because to me, Brendan Dillon pushes Miles Wood into the goalie. Miles doesn't really make much of an effort to scramble out of there in his in New Jersey's defense. Like, he does just kind of hang out on his back in the goal crease for a while, but he's not actively impeding Markstrom during that time, right? Like, the pucks aren't coming towards the net. Yeah, he's kind of in the way, but I would argue that I've seen more interference not called goalie interference. And then when he tries to get out of the way, Brendan Dillon basically just kind of stands on top of him and doesn't let him get out of the way. So I'm really genuinely very surprised that was called a goalie interference call. Again, I don't think this is the 6-1-4 rule. I don't think this is Columbus bias or anything like that. I think it's just that no one really knows what goalie interference is. Again, the Blue Jackets, I think, were actually pretty lucky with the officiating in this game. I think they had at least 2 blatant trips that I was very surprised weren't called. But again, I thought unlucky to have that called goalie interference. Maybe, again, I feel like I'm in the minority with that, but I thought that they were very, very unlucky to not have that be a goal. And I did have kind of a sinking feeling because I feel like immediately after that goal wasn't called, there was a really sustained zone time for the Devils that they were, again, very, very unlucky not to score on. So again, there was some real delayed gratification in this game, but I think, again, unlucky to not have that goalie interference goal called. And I also think lucky to the Fabro goal. The puck kind of bounced to him. Again, he was in the right place. I'm not discrediting Fabro on this. It was a great shot as well, but that wasn't like a set play. That wasn't, okay, we're going to do this and this is going to work out, right? That was a broken play that they capitalized on. I thought the first Olivier goal was a really great play. Again, opportunistic. Cole Sillinger just kind of somehow manages to get the puck to Olivier, and Olivier scores. I texted my wife. So I was on the phone with my wife during this game, so I had the game on mute, and I did interrupt her story to tell her about Mathieu Olivier scoring a real goal, and she was very, very shocked and also thrilled. But she was like, oh, she watched the goal afterwards. She was like, oh yeah, that's like a real goal scorer's goal. I was like, yeah, I know. It's great. I love it. I didn't know he had it in him. That's maybe unkind of me, but it was a really nice play from Sillinger, and then he just puts the puck in the net. And then obviously the third goal wasn't really a goal at all, but counts as one because of how NHL empty net goals work. But I thought personally 3 very opportunistic goals. And I don't mean that as a slight. Like this is an opportunistic sport. You take advantage of the other team's mistakes. You take advantage of the weird puck bounces. You take advantage of, again, that third goal for Olivier. He was the only guy that was skating for that puck, basically. I was really, really shocked to see that no one in New Jersey really kind of seemed to know what to do there until it was too late. And then obviously they take the penalty, which resulted in the goal. But I was that whole play felt very kind of surprising to me. I'm not gonna, I'll take it. I'm never mad about a goal, but a very weird play that I don't know that if I was the New Jersey Devils coach, I wouldn't be super thrilled about how that goal went down. Let's take a quick break, and then when we get back, I want to check in on the standings, which I'm sure someone in the comments is updating me on whether the Penguins have won the game yet or not. But we'll check in on the standings. We'll look at the out-of-town scoreboard. We'll see what all of this means for the Blue Jackets going forward as they have one more game before their Olympic break. We'll do all of that in just a second. First, I've got to tell you about FanDuel. The last call for football on FanDuel, one final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game that everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels so much bigger. It is the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win, and make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the football season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. Thanks for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Thanks for making us the #1 sports podcast network as well. If you haven't already, go check out the Everydayers Club. You get access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Blue Jacket, which is compatible with basically every major podcasting app you can think of. It includes an invitation to the members-only Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. And it's just $5 a month. So if you have ad fatigue, like I know many people do when they listen to podcasts, $5 a month gets you ad-free episodes of this very show, or one $50 payment will get you an entire year of ad-free audio as well. Just go to lockedonbluejackets.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. Let's talk a little bit more. Well, I was going to talk a little bit more about this game. What I actually want to talk about is the standings. Right now, again, the Blue Jackets have done huge things to get into a position that they're in, right? Like they were basically dead in the water. Rick Bowness comes in. The Blue Jackets have picked up 20 of the last 22 points or something stupid. I think 18 of 20 points under Rick Bowness. And they are right back in the hunt right now. They got some luck earlier as the Washington Capitals lost in regulation to the Philadelphia Flyers, which puts the Washington Capitals on the same number of points as the Blue Jackets, but they have 3 more games played. It does bring the Flyers up to 60 points, which is a little too close for comfort, but that was what we wanted, right? That was what the Blue Jackets needed, is for Washington to lose, because now the Blue Jackets, they can just kind of keep climbing them. Flyers are still 3 points behind. They were 5, now they're 3. It's fine. This kind of 4-point game happens, right? The other 4-point game that's happening right now is Pittsburgh and the New York Islanders, which I said, what we don't want from this game is overtime, and guess what we have? It's overtime. So that's going to be a 3-point game. So the Islanders will have at least 66 points to go into their Olympic break. They might win. They have one more game after this as well. So if they win that, then they'll go into the Olympic break with, I think, 68 points. But they'll also have 2 games in hand over the Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets right now, the most they can finish with is 65 to go into the Olympic break. So they will not, this point from New York Islanders seems very small, but it will prevent the Blue Jackets from entering a playoff spot before the Olympic break. That's annoying. It's not the end of the world, right? Again, like I did all of the math before this game. The Blue Jackets, if they win tomorrow against Chicago, which is a very winnable game. Again, the win streaks are getting stressful to me. I think I talked about this in yesterday's episode or this morning's episode, depending on what time you're listening to this. That anytime a win streak gets above 5, it makes me nervous. Blue Jackets have won 6 in a row. They're going for 7 tomorrow. If they win that, they'll be on 65 points with 56 games played. The Islanders will be on at least 66, potentially 67, with 57 games played. Then the Penguins are going to be, I think the Penguins have one more game to play after tonight as well. So they could have as many as 71 points if they get the win tonight. So again, like that's the third seed in the Metro is what we're worried about. The Blue Jackets, if everything goes right, even after tonight's game, they will be 1 point out of a playoff spot coming out of the Olympic break, which is huge. Again, annoying that this game has become a 3-point game. The Penguins Islanders game, I don't know if it's over yet. I looked and didn't see it. Oh, it looks like it's over. The Islanders won, which is really annoying and is the worst case scenario. So they will have 67 points. Blue Jackets are currently sitting on 63. So here's the other thing as well, is that like even though they've won, the Islanders are still only 4 points away from the Blue Jackets, and I believe have a game in hand. They have 2 games in hand right now, so that's nothing, right? Again, this is a drum that I've kind of been banging for a while. Is obviously you look at the scoreboards, you check in on the scoreboards, worry about winning games, and that's kind of what the Blue Jackets have been doing, right? Is listen, it doesn't matter what everyone else does. It does, but you can't control what everyone else does, right? Just win your games and figure everything else out later. And that's what the Blue Jackets are doing right now. The win tomorrow, go into the Olympic break on a high, go from there. You know, that's really, really all you can do. And the Blue Jackets have been doing a great job of that. I'm going to take another quick break, and then I'm going to dive into the comment section, which has been popping off. And again, I assume a lot of that is Pittsburgh Islanders updates, which I appreciate y'all for. But we'll take a very quick break, and then we'll get into the comment section. So if you have questions or anything that you want to say about the game, grab it in there now, and we'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. Thanks for making this your first listen of the day, every single day. The first thing that I'm going to get into is Jack Wu 47-19. What's so exciting about CBJ is we are winning in different ways. Goalie optional games and nail-biter 1-0 wins. Fully agree. And they're doing in between that as well, right? Like their last, what is it, six games? I think the Dallas game was the beginning of the win streak. I'm just going to pull up the Blue Jackets calendar real quick so I know that I am getting it exactly right. So the beginning of the win streak was in fact the Dallas game. So a 1-0 win they started the win streak with. They then followed that up with an 8-5 win, which is absurd, obviously, and then a 5-3 win, a 4-2 win, and a 5-3 win. Those are all pretty reasonable middle of the pack wins, right? And then another shutout, a 3-0 win against the Devils tonight. So yeah, they are winning in a bunch of different ways, which is great. They're not, I feel like a lot of their success last season specifically was just scoring as many goals as they can and hoping that was for the best. They're doing that for some games this year. Like again, the Tampa Bay game stands to mind, but you've got a game like the Dallas game, which was a 100% a Jet Greaves win. You've got games like tonight, which I think Elvis was great, but the defense was also big, right? Like I feel like anytime you're allowing fewer than 25 shots on goal in a game, then that's a pretty solid defensive performance, right? I would love to get that down to like 22 or 23 shots a game, but like on average, I feel like the average NHL team is allowing 27, 28 shots on goal in a game. Again, Locked On Blue Jackets, every day is you on your bingo card. I had the tab that I wanted open. and did not keep it open. So middle of the pack for shots on goal right now is 28. So again, if you're allowing 25, only 3 teams allow fewer than 25 shots a game on average. So if you're allowing under 25 shots a game, that's a pretty good defensive performance for me, right? So to go back to what Jack Wu was saying, yeah, they're winning different ways. Goalie optional games, 1-0 wins. In between, they're winning games based on goal scoring. They're winning games based on their defense. They're winning games based on their goaltending. They are winning in all kinds of different ways. And that is really, really promising because sometimes sometimes you watch a team win and you're like, oh, they are riding a hot goalie. When that goalie gets tired, they are going to fall apart, right? Or they are riding unsustainable shooting percentages and things like that, right? But Blue Jackets are doing every different kind of thing right now, which is really, really fun. Jack also says we got better luck this game. 3 post hits from the Devils. Any one of those could have gone in, but posts don't win games. Am I right? 100% correct. I don't have it saved to my phone anymore. I did used to have the Simpsons Don't Make Me Tap the Sign JPEG with hitting the post is not the same as beating the goalie, because if you hit the post, that doesn't actually count as a shot on goal. So you didn't beat the goalie, you hit the post. Those are 2 different things. Again, lucky. If the shot was an inch in another direction, that could have been a goal, but it wasn't. So, hey, it counts. Doomslayer Dave says that Sillinger's low-key been amazing during this run, just can't hit the back of the net. I've really, really enjoyed Cole Sillinger this season, actually. I think pairing him with Charlie Coyle has really, really been the making of him. I would love to see him return to the player he was in junior hockey, which was a pure sniper, right? This team seems to have tried to turn him into a 2-way center, which mixed results on that. Moving him back to the wing was great for him, and I think pairing him with Charlie Coyle was also great for him, in the same way that pairing Kent Johnson with James Van Riemsdyk was great last year, right? I think James Van Riemsdyk was really, really great for Kent Johnson. I think we're seeing similar results from Charlie Coyle and Cole Sillinger being paired together. It does make me wonder what would happen if you put Kent Johnson with Charlie Coyle for a couple of games. I think that could be fun. But I understand that they don't want to break up the lines that are working for them at the minute. And again, I think Mathieu Olivier has also really been benefiting from playing with Charlie Coyle. That third line continues to be a really, really fun line. I don't think it's the what's it called? The checking line that Dean Everson wanted it to be. But it's really fun. Really, really fun. Maya says, I was hella critical of Elvis, especially last year, but he's been good. Thank goodness for Jet. I agree. Again, it's amazing what happens when you have 2 goalies that are both playing well at the same time and you play both goalies. And I think that was part of where the wheels started coming off for the goaltending is Elvis played really, really well in that first Islanders game of the season, if you remember. And they lost that game with like 90 seconds left. Not because of Elvis. He was great in that game. But I think that rattled him. And then he got sick after that. And that threw the goalie tandem off whack. Jet was playing well. And Dean Everson just decided to ride the hot hand, which I agree with to an extent. But then you see what happened was Jet started to get fatigued because he's very, very young. And Elvis wasn't playing well because he was playing once every 2 weeks. And that's how you get 2 really good goalies to stop playing well. We've seen some critiques from people about why is Elvis getting all of this playing time when Jet's been playing so well, but Elvis has been playing great as well. And he was great tonight. So again, I love to have 2 good goalies. That's always fun, right? Doomslayer Dave also says we need a high caliber scoring winger. Marchment is great, but not on the first line. I agree. I don't know who. Like, the dream is Jason Robertson, right? I don't know what you give up for Jason Robertson, because it's probably going to be a Quinn Hughes type return or more, or potentially a Matthew Tkachuk type deal, or a Mikko Rantanen type deal. Like, you're going to have to give up a lot for Jason Robertson, but that's my number 1 guy that I want. I think you put Jason Robertson on a line with Adam Fantilli and Kromachenko and watch all of them have a bajillion points for the next 10 years. The answer is, the question is, how much is that going to cost, right? Are you willing to give up, are you willing to give up 10 to Matejchuk to make that happen, for example? Are you willing to give up Cole Sillinger or Dmitry Voronkov or, Ken Johnson to make that happen? Are you willing to give up this year's first round pick? All of these moving parts, right? But that's Jason Robertson is the guy for me. I don't know what Don Waddell's thinking. I don't think he's thinking it very fast, whatever it is. Again, I have been lightly critical of Waddell, but also, for better or worse, he's not a fast mover, right? And sometimes that means that he doesn't panic, which is great, but also sometimes that means that he's too slow to make the moves that he should make. I don't know what he's going to do at the trade deadline. That is quite stressful because he's not going to sell because Coyle is playing well and Coyle wants to stay. Marchment, he's been trying to get hold of for forever and has finally managed it. He's probably going to stay. Do you move Boone Jenner? Do you move Eric Branson? Do you buy at the deadline? If they're in the race, if they're in the mix, in the playoff picture, he's not selling. That might end up being a mistake. But I think on the flip side, this team right now is rolling. The worry is that they were rolling this time last year, and then March happened and everyone fell apart. Like last year's March was miserable. They got shut out like 6 times in the month of March. The worry is that happens again, and again, they missed the playoffs by 2 points. But right now, I think the team is giving Waddell a really difficult discussion, or several really difficult discussions to make, and it's giving him more work to do. And I know that the conversation over the Olympic breaks is going to be, right, okay, which of these UFAs are we keeping? But I think you also have to talk about a Fantilli contract extension. You have to talk about Jet Greaves' contract extension. Like, there's a lot to get done in this next 3 weeks. I'm it's weird. It is probably good for the long-term success of this club to sell your big UFAs and get hauls. That being said, you're kind of at a weird point right now where you have Zach Werenski, who is 28, 29 years old. He is really in the upper limit of how old a player should be to enter a contention window, right? If you sell this year, you take a step backwards, yeah, that's probably fine. But the Blue Jackets are not going to be like Ivar Stenberg or Keaton Verhoff or Gavin McKenna or whoever you get, with whoever you pick in the first round this year, is not going to be the kind of difference maker for this team that they need for the window that they're at right now, right? You want to try to build around Werenski and Fantilli at the same time, for my money. So I'm kind of at a point where I'm like, yeah, I don't think you should sell futures just to sell them. But I would love if they sold futures to bring in someone like a Jason Robertson. That would be ideal for me. I don't think they should go after Panarin. I think that would be a mistake. I'm glad that they didn't go after someone like Kiefer Sherwood. I'm glad they didn't go after like Rasmus Anderson. These guys are too old for the window. But I don't know what Waddell's plan is. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him just stand pat at the deadline again. To seller's market this year, you're going to overpay for people. And kind of the Blue Jackets, I think, have already made a lot of the trade deadline adjacent acquisitions. So I would be very surprised if they make a big trade deadline acquisition this year. I think a lot of these moves are going to come in the summer. Is the TLDR. Just going to flip them through. Yeah, Dan Good says Jackets should keep winning. Before you know it, they're going to be in the wildcard chase on top of placing in the Metro. I agree. They are, I think, 6 points out of a wildcard spot right now. Where's my math? They are 5 points out. They're 5 points behind Boston for the second wildcard spot. Boston's got a game in hand over them. So again, if the Blue Jackets win this next game, go into the break, they will be 3 points out of a wildcard race and between 4 and 5 points out of the Metro spot, which is great. So I love that. Teams are going to fall off. Teams are going to return to average. I think, again, the Blue Jackets are probably going to be one of these teams. Like I talked about this in yesterday's episode. Like, this is not a team with a 90% winning percentage. right? Like, they're not a team that's built to win 70 of 82 games. And that's kind of the pace that they're on right now under bonus. They're going to lose games. But they're putting themselves in the mix. They've got a very easy schedule after the Olympics in terms of teams that they're facing. The Penguins have a pretty hard schedule coming out of the Olympic break. The Islanders have kind of a middle of the pack schedule, and they're also riding really, really hot goaltending right now. So I'm kind of like, well, yeah, why not the Blue Jackets? Why shouldn't the Blue Jackets make the playoffs? Every team is winning right now. Should be the Blue Jackets. That's what we'll find out. Again, it's weird to think that we're about to go through 3 weeks of no NHL hockey because I feel like I'm really, really into it right now. You know, it is a weird season. I haven't had a lot of enthusiasm for how the season has been going. Last 3 weeks, I'm like, yeah, I'll watch this team play every day for the rest of time, you know? So we've got one game tomorrow, and then after that, it's no NHL hockey for like 3 weeks. Get to watch Zach Werenski and Elvis Merzlikins at the Olympics, which will be fun. But it's the question is going to be, can they keep this momentum up after taking 3 weeks off, right? Is this where the new coach bump ends? I don't know. Blue Jackets have got 7 games or 6 games now, I think, between now and the trade deadline. I think if they win if they get 8 points from those 6 games, right? That's 4 wins out of 6. I think they're probably going to be in a pretty good spot. Also, what I talked about in terms of getting points, before they began this little 4-game stretch of these 2 back-to-backs, I was like, right, let's get 6 out of the 8 points from Chicago twice, St. Louis, and New Jersey. They've got 6 points already, and they've still got a game tomorrow. So, again, they might lose the game tomorrow. I'll be annoyed. I'll be disappointed. But it won't be the end of the world. They have done a massive amount of ground making up. They've made up a massive amount of ground over the past, 3.5 weeks. They're right back in the mix. This is like, who was it? I just saw someone said it and then lost. Maya says they're a bubble team. They're where they are in the standings for a reason. I agree. Captain Fleek says they were a bubble team last year. That was a surprise to most. Yeah, the team is about where they should be in the standings right now, right? This is not a team that is as bad as they were for the first half of the season, and they're not as fully good as they are the way they've been playing under Rick Bowness right now. The team will fall off, but if they can play 500-ish hockey until the end of the season, that's a playoff team to me, which is great. Z-Man Chase says the Penguins had one job. You can't count on them for anything. I agree. I feel like we needed the Penguins to win a game like 2 weeks ago, and they didn't do it. Stupid. Useless. Annoying. That's the Penguins for you. We'll see. I'm going to finish off with one last trade deadline thing, which is from Bradabo, which says it might be easy to make some deal since most teams who are packing it in are in the West. I agree. But I also think that there are going to be teams that are selling, right? Again, the West is so stupid this year. So the Blue Jackets have 63 points and are outside of a playoff spot right now. The Vegas Golden Knights have 64 points and are leading the Pacific Division. Outside of Colorado, Minnesota, and Dallas, the Western Conference is just butt cheeks. Like, it's so bad. The Blue Jackets would be 3rd in the Pacific Division easily. Or there would be a wild card spot if they were in the Central. Like, this division is bad. The Pacific is bad. The Western Conference is also bad. Vancouver's going to be selling. St. Louis is going to be selling. Jordan Cairo is another name that I would love to pick up, actually, but he's also going to be expensive. Calgary Flames, probably sellers. The Jets are sellers. The Blackhawks are probably going to start selling. Again, depending on what LA, San Jose, and Nashville do. The Anaheim Ducks are potentially going to be sellers, although they're on a real hot streak at the minute. They're 8-2 in their last 10. But all of these teams are on the outside looking in or are just on the inside of the playoff bubble, right? So if the Anaheim Ducks come out of the Olympic break and fall completely off, they might be sellers, right? So there's going to be probably at least 6 or 7 sellers from the West. However, there are going to be many, many more teams than that are buying, right? Like, again, Tampa, Detroit, Buffalo, Carolina, the Penguins, the Islanders, the Canadiens, the Bruins. There's your 8 playoff teams right now. If you add in someone like Washington, who's right on there looking in, if you add the Blue Jackets, there's 10 teams. There are going to be other teams in the West that are looking to add: Colorado, Minnesota, Dallas, Vegas, maybe Edmonton, maybe Seattle. There are going to be more sellers than there are buyers, and that's going to drive up the price. Is the point I'm making here. So I don't want to overpay just to get something, so we'll see. I'm going to finish on one last thing, which is Dan Good calling me out for being negative. Dan says, I really think you're underestimating this team. If you factor in the games they lost with the lead going in the third period and lost, this team would be in first place. I agree. However, you do have to factor that in, right? You can't say, well, if they'd only won this game, things would be different, because they didn't win the game, and things are different. So, yeah, this team is probably better than their record, but at the same time, you can't, I don't know. I fall guilty to this a lot, of being like, well, if they'd only won this one game, if they'd only won this game, if they'd scored that one goal, blah, 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 like if they, last year, for example, they lost to the Canadiens. I think that the Canadiens beat them, twice out of the 4 attempts. It might have been 3 times out of the 4 attempts. If the Blue Jackets had won one of those games, they would have been in a playoff spot, right? So, yeah, this team is better than their first half record, but the first half record still counts. That's all I've got for today, I think. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming to hang out in the chat. I always love when people come and have comments and questions and want to talk about the game. It's a lot of fun. I didn't get a chance to talk about tomorrow's game, so what we're going to do is tomorrow morning I will probably do like a quick little 10 to 15 minute preview of the Blackhawks. Obviously, we're all familiar with them. We played them like 5 minutes ago, but that'll be coming tomorrow, and then Thursday morning we'll recap the Blackhawks game as well. The good, the bad, the ugly, you know the drill. Thank you for listening to this episode, for making it your probably your last listen of the day. If we're being honest, it's very late for me, and it's getting late for all of you. So shout out to you guys coming to hang out at like 10:30 at night. I appreciate it, y'all. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Blue Sky at JAKOBFORSTEI. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets on Twitter, and LO-Blue Jackets over on Blue Sky. Again, we'll do a preview for tomorrow night's game tomorrow morning. But until then, thank you once again for listening, and stay locked on.